smooth. It's good.
Good day, English grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's lesson for English First Additional Language. My name is Marina Seeley, and this program has been made possible, and it's brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Centre. Today we're going to look at the essay, and we are going to focus specifically on the response to a visual text. Now let's have an overview. How do we prepare for an essay? I know that you have to, at this point, do a task that requires of you to write an essay. So let's see. First of all, you have to prepare. We are so often of the belief that writing essays is just something that you get into and you get done and you leave, and that there's no preparation involved. If you want to write a good essay, if you want to get good marks, then preparation is key. So, how do you do that? Creativity is not something that you are born with. Creativity is something that you practice. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. Whether you're writing a narrative essay or a factual essay, and yes, even an argumentative essay. The more you observe, experience, and notice detail, the more creative you will become. And this is specifically true for the response to a text. In other words, the response to a picture. You can look at pictures and create ideas and look at pictures from a different angle. Remember, we very often want to see the world as we expect to see it. But sometimes you focus on something specific, that one thing that grabs your attention, that one thing that speaks to you. And that would be the point of view or the angle that you would use to interpret the picture. And then, as everybody has been telling you since you were grade 4, read, read, and read. The more you read, the more adept you'll become at using language structures. You will learn new words. In other words, your vocabulary will improve. And before you know it, you'll be able to write a very, very good essay and even a speech because you have the vocabulary to express yourself. You can collect interesting vocabulary. You know, just a drive down the street will open up avenues of thoughts because you get billboards, there's like newspapers along the way. In the morning when you wake up, there's something to read. The toothpaste. When you sit down for breakfast, you will have the cereal box. That is all reading. And that is where you actually accumulate vocabulary. So don't think it's only the thick books that smell of dust that you would use to develop your vocabulary. Analyze the topics very carefully. And that goes for all the topics for essays. In other words, section A of paper 3 or the task that you will be doing now. What do we mean by analyzing a topic? That is when we pull it apart and make sure that we cover all our bases. All the different parts of that question or that topic should be covered. And then practice brainstorming. We live in a society where we think we have to be right all the time and we have to think a certain way. And certainly, whatever we surround ourselves with influences what we think. And very often, we don't trust our own interpretation. And where do you get that from? Remember, you have a history. You were born into a family, you experienced certain things, you did a lot of things that only you could do. You have relationships with parents, grandparents, family, friends, and that makes you uniquely you. So when you brainstorm, There isn't a set of words or things that you have to write down. Brainstorming, in fact, means writing down everything that comes to mind as you look at that picture or after you've analyzed the topic. Responding to a picture is one of the best answered essays, or the essays that marks the best in the final exams in the NSC. Now, in the instructions, you will be told to choose only one picture to write about. A picture essay can take any form of an essay that we discussed in the previous sessions. And just a quick recap, we have a narrative, the story, argumentative, that's when you take a specific position, a discursive, when you discuss two sides of a situation and weigh up the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages. Then you have a descriptive essay, and then a reflective essay. But please remember that you will never be limited to write a narrative essay connected to a specific topic. Your topic will lend itself to any kind of interpretation. And you need to choose that topic that you know you are the strongest at. And how do you know that? Vocabulary that you have, and also the type of person that you are. I'm a terrible person when it comes to arguing. I always lose the argument. I don't like taking in a specific position, but I love describing things. I love telling stories, and that would be my strong point. So you can actually interpret that picture in any way you like, write any kind of essay that you prefer. The only prerequisite, in other words, the one thing that you have to do, is there should be a clear link between your essay and the picture you have chosen. You are requested to use your imagination, and you can interpret it in any way. I would suggest that you can consider the literal and the figurative meanings. Let's just go back to those two words. Literal means if you say, this is my journey, then journey would actually mean a trip. In other words, by car, by bus, by aeroplane, your first trip, your last trip, whatever, but it refers to a trip, a journey. If we interpret that topic in a figurative sense, we would say that the journey could be your life. It could be a specific journey in your professional life or the journey as a student. So you can interpret it in any way you like. What content or story can you write on the picture? And as we go through the process, I will also tell you that you don't have to focus on the whole picture. You can focus on an aspect of the picture that speaks to you. Also consider what type of essay can be written on the visual, and I've just told you that you can interpret the picture essay in any way you like. And whatever you take from that, you can write whatever essay you like. It is just very important that you understand that it has to link with the picture in some or other way. Oh, I love this picture. It says so much. You might not like it. But let's just look at the picture in more detail. Sometimes we look at things and we just scan over it and we see it and it passes. But if we stop for a while and we look at it and we let our creativity and our creative minds go for a little, we would be surprised at what we would get out of a simple picture. Shame this car is banged up. Not the type of car that you would like as your first car, but a challenge, definitely. So let's take a look. Write down words that describe what you see. In other words, there you would describe the mottled grey, the fact that it misses a window. You write down words, colours, ideas. And if a phrase pops up, then you write down a phrase. But write down descriptive things that you see in that picture. Remember, descriptive does not have to be limited to what you see. It might also be how you feel about it. How does it make you feel when you look at that picture? So you can also add an emotion. And then the next question that you can think about is, where did you find this car? Can you see that you are already creating a storyline? Because where you find it says a lot. It might be in your grandfather's garage. It might be next to a wall of a deserted house. You get to decide where you found this one. The next question would be, so who did this belong to? Interesting. And remember, you are never wrong. It is your essay, your ideas. So you can go crazy wild with this one. Where did this car travel? You see how we get another layer. Where did this car travel? What was its first trip? Perhaps you want to describe the last trip. Who knows? That is yours. And that is where your creativity comes in. And then you can also elaborate further. You can also ask, so what happened? Now, if you look at those ideas, I see 5. Would that not be 5 paragraphs already? That is your planning. I'm going to give you 3 minutes in which you are quickly going to jot down as many of the things as I asked you to do in these 5 points. Your 3 minutes starts now. Right, I hope that you enjoyed that quick exercise. And I hope that you realize that there's a lot to be said if you only bear down and look a little more deeply. And not only look deeply at the picture, but look a little deeply into your soul and your experience. This is a quick response. So I'm going to show you this picture. I will give you a couple of seconds to quickly look at it. And then I'm going to ask you to write down any descriptive words that come to mind. Now remember, it would not only be words that describe what you physically see, it might also describe emotion or atmosphere or tone. Those three words are very important. The second thing that you might want to write down is how it makes you feel. That was a quick response. And when you look at a picture, sometimes you actually, the response you get is like a flash. And you would immediately know, oh, this I can write about. This makes me excited. Why would you write about something that you don't like? Something that is really hard work? When you write, it must almost bubble from you. I want you to look at this picture now, another picture. And I want you to study the picture. And I want you to take a look at, we're going to repeat the same idea, but you'll see that there are layers of meaning that we add every time. Yet again, you write down words that describe what you see. Remember, you write what you see and then also the impact it has on you. So those are also descriptive words that you might want to add. And then I want you to focus on the character. Who is this character? You can give her a name. You can give her a family. You can tell me what she did as for a job. What kind of work did she do? Was she a stay-at-home mom? Was she working in a factory? Was she somebody who worked in a market? You get to choose who she is, where she comes from, and you create a history for her. And the moment you do that, you create interest. Then it's so much easier to actually let the character develop. And obviously, when you have one character, even though there are no other characters in the picture, you can create characters to add to that. Describe her body language and facial expression. Now, if I look at her, she doesn't look excited. Just looking at the background tells you that is devastation. It's like a hurricane or an earthquake that went through because she's sitting on rubble. My interpretation, of course. And then when you look at her facial expression, be detailed. Tell us what her eyes show. Tell us what her downturned mouth show. Tell us what her hands show. She's not excited. Her hands are not up. And by the way, this is also an effective interpretation of cartoons when you look at body language and facial expression. And then we refer to the setting. Now, what is the setting specifically? We refer to where is this situated and when. Now, where would be geographical. So you can say a specific country, a specific city or town. You could also refer to a specific place if you wanted to. The when, yet again, is something totally different. Because if this story that you are writing deals with a lady who came back from Mars after living there for yonks, a number of years, after there was a total devastation of the earth, and she has now come back. But she has seen pictures that her mother had on the space station on Mars. And now she comes back to the place where they used to live. It takes you in a totally different stance than when you would actually just describe what you see. So the when could be time, and it doesn't have to be the here and now. It doesn't have to be linked to a specific event. And then you can also relate to what you think happened very shortly. And this is what we call brainstorming. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this. So really, really put in everything. Let your mind wander. And I want you to ignore your friend that's sitting next to you and scratching in his bag. I want you to focus on the paper and on the picture, and I want you to really just embrace the experience. You have 5 minutes.
1.
So welcome back. I trust that the lady has a name, she has a background, she has a history, and you know where you wanted to go with the story. Of course, you could have written a discursive essay or written down notes on a discursive essay when you discuss things like natural disasters and how we can prevent it and why it is happening more frequently today. I actually just heard that in the last couple of weeks, America has seen a lot of tornadoes moving through. So, yes, that is our reality. Now, when we come to the structure of a good essay, my tried and tested example would be a sandwich. I don't know anyone who doesn't like a good sandwich. And if I do make you hungry now, please forgive me, but you will remember it for the rest of your life. There are a couple of things to a good sandwich. Number one, 2 slices of bread, whether it's white or whole wheat or brown or whatever your fancy takes you, it should be fresh and thick enough not to fall apart when you put the itty nicey bits on. So that would be a good introduction, and it would be followed by striking ideas. Those would be all the fillings that you put in. Sometimes you only need to put on cheese and onion and tomato. Sometimes you feel wild and you add a little salami or ham. Or if you are like me, my tried and tested sandwich would be a peanut butter and syrup sandwich because it just makes me happy. Nonetheless, the ideas never change. Vocabulary, interesting vocabulary. Obviously, we are used to common sandwiches, but you know what? There are shops and restaurants that specialize in those amazing sandwiches. So create an amazing essay. You need a variety of sentences. And I'm challenging you to go back to an essay that you might have already written, in your practice essays before you write your final task. You might have written, you actually got it back. I think it was task 2, if I'm not mistaken. I want you to take a look at your essay again and see how many times or how often you actually write one paragraph, one sentence. So by line 3, I've lost the plot. That doesn't make sense to me at all. So meaning goes to waste. If you vary your sentences, it makes it interesting. If you describe a very terrible scene, for example, you might want to go, I gasped. There was the sound again. And then you don't use a full stop. Remember, punctuation is not about full stops and commas. You have exclamation marks. You have question marks. Use them. And then, of course, a good conclusion. If you have a sandwich where one slice of bread is nice and fresh and the other one is about half the size, and all the lovely itty-bitty insides fall to the floor. Now that is like reading a really soggy essay with a really soggy ending. So make sure that your introduction and your conclusion are both strong to keep the nice itty-bitty insides together. Let's talk about planning. We've referred to brainstorming, and I've told you that brainstorming is all about writing down ideas as they come floating out of your mind. Now comes the idea of mind mapping, and all your teachers, I'm sure, told you you have to have a mind map. That is true. You have to have a planning, not necessarily a mind map. This is a true mind map. You will see that it starts off right in the middle with the idea, And then for every leg that moves out, there's one word or one idea. And each one of those ideas actually extend into little tentacles until your whole page is filled up. One thing you have to understand, I have never planned anything, and my plans were absolutely neat. How often have you planned something and then half of the papers land in your wastebasket? That is planning. Now, obviously, you can't let that land in the waste paper basket, but you can scratch out, turn, add. You see, there's an arrow going from one side to the next, and there's like a electric thingy at the bottom. Those are the things that you will add to your planning. Remember, it's for you. You don't get marks for the planning. But if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay, so for a person who's right brained most of the time, in other words, they're very creative and they don't like or they don't mind a mess, a mind map is very good. Oh, but I know some people who feel very uncomfortable with a mess and they permanently want to rearrange it. Now, you might want to look at a flow chart. A flow chart is more organized, even though it also cascades out. It's a little neater, it's a little more organized. So you can do your planning like this as well. Or you can plainly just write down notes, thoughts that come to mind, and you rule out and you scratch out and you add something else and you add numbers, and that is your planning. And please remember, most of our markers and your teachers have been teachers and markers for years and years and years. So if you put your planning at the end of your essay and you say, tick, I have done planning, you've bamboozled yourself. You have not done planning. Your planning should be right at the beginning. And even if your essay finally ends up deviating a little from your planning, it is still okay because your thought processes might have become a little more organized or logical, if you understand what I mean. Now, when you plan, you brainstorm. That's step one. Remember, you see the picture, you respond, you write down things. You write down words, phrases, ideas as they come to mind. Some of them may seem stupid, but you write them down anyway. You will probably not use everything that you have written down, but once you've done that, you read through the notes and organize them in 3 to 4 main ideas. Remember, sometimes you might need 5 ideas, who knows? But the rule of thumb would be around 3 to 4 ideas. Remember, then you'd have an introduction, 3 to 4 paragraphs in which you develop your thoughts, and then your conclusion at the end, which comes down to 5 paragraphs. But there's no limit. Please remember that. Each idea will most probably become a paragraph. So you've got a main idea and you elaborate on that idea, and that becomes a paragraph. And by now, you might also know what type of essay you want to write. As I said, it doesn't have to be a clear-cut descriptive or narrative or discursive or argumentative essay. It is usually a mix of the lot. Not necessarily argumentative, but in most cases, the narrative, reflective, and descriptive actually go together quite well. And now only are you ready to write the introduction. Now, if I could be a fly on the wall in your classroom right now, I would want to know how many of you actually start with your introduction when you write. That is like introducing someone that you've never met before. You need to know something about the person. Imagine you meet a guy or a girl and you want to take him or her home, and you want to introduce this person to your family. Of course, you need to know something about that person. If not, that's a little weird. So, in order for you to introduce your essay, you need to know where you're going with it. And that's why I say, right at the end, or in your planning process, you can only write your introduction towards the end of your planning system or your planning program. Okay, so now picture again, picture time, and every time it gets a little more messy, doesn't it? Okay, so we are going to practice again. This time around, there's a little bit more. For one, I can isolate 1, 2, 3, 4 different scenes. So I can already write 4 different essays if I wanted to. Depends on what attracts your attention. So, yet again, question 1, describe what you see. Then, put it in a setting. Where does this take place? When does it take place? Then let's take a look at the characters. Now we see 2 characters, but nothing stops you from creating another character or 2 or 3. They might be running and looking for survivors. It might be their dog or cat. Do you see that the opportunities and the possibilities are endless? So I want you to take a look at this picture, and I want you to identify that one thing. And very often when you close your eyes, you open it and you focus, something will jump out at you. And that is what you are going to focus on at this point. Yet again, remember we talked about point of view. In other words, if you are a firefighter or an ambulance person, and you look at the 2 of them, what would your point of view be on what you see in front of you? If you were a seagull sitting on the traffic light, what would your point of view be? And remember, there's no limit to that. As long as you link the picture and your essay, it is yours to write. And then I want you to move a little further. Because remember, previously we just looked at the picture, we interpreted it. At this point, I want you to also consider current issues in the world, things that are happening. I just think for a moment about what happened in Dubai, those floods, that flash flood where it rained 3 years worth in 4 hours or 24 hours. The impact that has on the country, the infrastructure, the economy. If I look at this might be set in South Africa somewhere. I remind myself of the KZN floods that we had a couple of years ago. I can't even really remember when exactly, but I remember the devastation and I remember the effect that it has had on many people. People I know personally, but also people that I hear about or see on television and in the news. So I want you to focus a little wider and think about current issues that we have in the world. Global warming. You see that we are already moving towards a discursive or a factual essay. You might even want to refer to an argumentative essay at this point. The opportunities and the possibilities are endless. And then I want you to add the following. What would the tone be that would be prevalent in this essay? And then also the atmosphere that it creates. Let's just refer back to those 2 words. Tone would be the emotion that is attached to the expression. In other words, the emotion that's attached to the words. And in those words and the way that they are phrased, you actually get to the atmosphere, what atmosphere is created. Is there an atmosphere? Let's use a very common word, sadness. Oh, how about the word melancholy? You can look that up in the dictionary and use it rather than sadness. Devastation, that's another word that you could use. But how does it create atmosphere? And remember, as a writer, you create a picture with words. Just like a painter creates pictures with paint and a paintbrush and perhaps oil pastels or coloring pencils, you create a picture with words. And I'm going to give you another 5 minutes for this exercise. And I want you to really delve deeply. Now, you see the layers have added. Let's just repeat quickly. Describe what you see. Then create the setting. Where is it? When is it? Remember time and place. Characters. Remember, give your characters names. Make them people and not just characters. And round them up a bit. Who are they? Where they are from? What's their names? What are their names? Concord era. And then also, how are they related in any way? And you can also add their age, because that would also influence their reaction to what they are experiencing currently. Then, of course, point of view. That is where the view that you look at the picture. And then the next one, current issues in the world, a little more serious. And then those words that you want to focus on that creates tone and atmosphere. You have 5 minutes for that. I trust that you enjoyed this exercise and that you could actually write down a lot and that you actually went, oh, we want more time. So what you can do is actually elaborate on that in your own time. If this picture spoke to you, then that is what you do. I actually went back to my years of art and I love Auguste Renoir. And this is really an old picture. It is a painting, a well-known painting. It has been repainted in a modern version, in a Russian version, in a French version, in a Chinese version, over and over again. And it's called The Luncheon of the Boating Party. Now, there's a lot here. As I said, we're scaffolding. So in this picture, there is a lot that you can focus on. Yet again, close your eyes, open it. And the first thing that catches your attention, focus on that part. And you don't have to include any of the others in your essay if that is the focus of your essay. Now, let's take a look at the interpretation of a picture again. You describe what you see. Then you include color. If it's not visible, use your imagination. Unfortunately, you will not get full color essays or paper threes to write. So chances are 100% that you're going to get black and white pictures. But you can imagine the colors if you look at the picture. Include different characters. Remember, give them names. Give them a background. Who are they? Where do they come from? Describe the setting, the where and the when. And brainstorm as much as you can about what you observe. And as you brainstorm that, your emotive words will automatically follow. Your tonal words, your words that create atmosphere will follow. And remember, I said you can also focus on parts of the picture. So let's take a look. I was really chuffed with this one. I identified a couple of scenes. And if there's one that speaks to you, that would be the one that you can focus on. So who do we have there? We have a lady with a very bright hat with flowers on. She looks a little eccentric. Eccentric. Look it up in the dictionary. The noun form of that would be eccentricity. There's another word for your knapsack. And she has this dog. Now, look at the way she kind of leans towards the dog. She wants to kiss this dog and she loves this dog. Give the dog a name. Who did she get it from? That is a possible avenue. You can include the man. The man is looking into the distance. I would actually think that he's listening to another person speaking if we look at the bigger picture again. Give them names. Sketch the situation, the setting, the who, the what, the when, the where. Another option would be this one. She seems a little younger than the other one. She's all on her own, but she doesn't really seem sad. Who is she talking to? Remember, point of view. You could talk from the point of view of the person observing her, or you can talk about from her point of view, observing someone else. What does she see? Another possibility, two male characters. The one is very nicely dressed with a top hat, and the one to the left has a cap on. Even though he also wears a collar and a tie, he's not as smartly dressed as the one on the right. So here you can actually go to town with the different types of characters. The first thing I thought about was it might be two gentlemen who meet up after they've left school, and the one is a doctor and the other one is a conductor on a train. Those are possibilities. It could also be a father and a son and the dynamics between them. In other words, their relationship. If I look at the character whose face we can clearly see, he doesn't look excited, doesn't look as though he's at a party. It looks as though he is seriously considering the words of the other character. You can play around with this. And the last but not least, two male characters and a lady. And I see the one character looking down at her, and she's kind of turned up towards him, paying attention to him. This other gentleman kind of looks out into the nothingness. Look at the relationship. Is it brother and sister? Is it a boyfriend, girlfriend, perhaps? What type of person is the guy in the jacket, the striped jacket? Create a little conflict, tension. How do we create that? By having them have a little conflict, internal conflict, external conflict, conflict with a situation. This boy with a boat hat might not be as high ranking as he should be in society. And as a result, the girl is not supposed to look at him or even consider him as a suitor, as opposed to the gentleman in the striped jacket. Seems to be a guy who has moved up in the social circles. What conflict could that create? Yet again, name the characters, give them names, give them a background. You can even say parents. Are they on their own? Are they orphans? You get to decide who your character is. And then you can also decide how they are related. Remember what I said? Picture number 2, even though there's only one character, the story doesn't need to be about the one character. It could be a result. It could be a point of view. What has led to this particular scene? So what happened before? Now you remember, if you look at paper 2, and I know Ma'am Satay actually looked at that the previous session, the setting of a story is the where and the when. Where is the story set? Because that greatly influences what happens. So what happened before and what's going to happen after? Predict. There you go. When you predict something, it is a prediction. That is what happens after. What you see here could actually predict what is going to happen afterwards. And then, just to add a little season to the mix, does it represent a social issue? And that is open for you for discussion. You can think about it. Is there something representative in our society that you kind of observe in these pictures? So how would you make your essay more interesting? As I said, vary your sentence length. The shorter the sentence, the more tension it creates. The longer your sentences, the more flow you have. But remember, your sentences must still make sense. And the longer your sentence gets, the more you tend to lose focus, and that becomes a problem. Describe what the speaker experiences. Remember, I said you are painting a picture. It's like describing something to someone who is blind. You need to create a clear picture. The reader should imagine himself in that scene and want to go back to it and read on. Use punctuation. Remember, I said punctuation is not only full stops and commas. An exclamation mark is also a punctuation mark. A question mark is also a punctuation mark. And that gives meaning to what you are writing. It conveys atmosphere and tone. If you want to emphasize something, then obviously you're going to add an exclamation mark. And what does it do? It emphasizes, it draws attention. And that is what you want in your writing. That's what makes it interesting. Not the highfalutin words that we think we should use. And I'll get to that in a minute. Remember, if you keep the reader's interest, good marks will follow. So what am I saying in essence? When you write an essay, please do not write the essay for the sake of getting marks only. When you write your essay, write to the best of your ability. Put everything out there, and the marks will automatically follow. So let's do another practice run. I used exactly the same picture as a previous one, two back actually, to be honest. And in this case, it contains the color that was in the original picture. But here, I want you to focus on the discursive essay. Now, what is a discursive essay again? A discursive essay is an essay that states two parts of an argument in equal fashion. All right? In other words, we look at the advantages and the disadvantages of something. So the discursive essay here could be something like the devastation of the storm. Now we've dealt with it. We've talked about the devastation. It might be the what's that tsunami that came through that island, and these two kids are the only ones left. But you move it by describing the devastation first of all. And here, obviously, you're going to choose words that creates tone and atmosphere because you want to create that tension. Paragraph 2 could be more factual when you refer to reasons why flooding, hurricanes, and earthquakes happen. And this is very important. It's very factual. It's very straightforward. But remember that here you are going to need a little prior knowledge. And this is where language across the curriculum comes to play. We very often think when we write, when we are in the English class or in the Afrikaans class, or when we are in the isiZulu Xhosa class, or whatever class we are in, that is a specific subject for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And the next period, we move on to the geography period. And then we forget what we've done in the English period, and vice versa. Challenging you to actually take the knowledge from geography or from history or from economics or business economics and even life sciences and including that's your prior knowledge. That is your vocabulary that you can use in your essay. You can't compartmentalize. In other words, you can't put it in little compartments. It is amazing when you can use the words that you have studied and learned in other subjects and incorporate them in what happens here. I usually love to use topics that come from life orientation because everybody needs to take life orientation. And every one of us has a specific interpretation of what is happening in the world around us. So that is another possibility. Paragraph 3 could actually refer to the effects of flood on people. The effect of floods on people, let me just read correctly, communities and economy. Remember how it influences people, families, communities. But then also, how does that affect the economy? We've gone through COVID. We've had a couple of really terrible natural disasters in the past 5 years. And how has that affected us? How has it affected the world? How has it changed your world view? And those are things that you might want to mention. And then in paragraph 4, you might want to refer to ways in which a disaster like this could be avoided in the future. And that closes off your essay really nicely. I'm not going to give you 8 minutes for this. I think you've got a very good idea of what is actually going on in this specific essay. So this would be the discursive essay. But do you also see that it does not only contain facts? There will be descriptions. There will be tone and atmosphere. You will create names for characters. Even if you are writing a discursive essay, they are actually plaited together. They move, they flow together. When we look at the conclusion of an essay, it brings the essay full circle. And very often the essay develops really well. The introduction is interesting. The development across the paragraphs is great. And then we get to that conclusion, that last paragraph. Either you introduce a new idea. Why would you do that? Or the conclusion is so soppy or unnatural that it actually devastates your whole essay. It binds the essay into a unit. And remember about the sandwich, just think about that sandwich again. Especially if you have peanut butter and syrup or honey. What happens to that bottom slice of bread? The honey bleeds into the bread, and then you get this soggy, icky, yucky slice of bread. Don't do that. You have to keep your conclusion interesting. You must want your audience or your reader to want more. Please be careful not to introduce a new idea. Remember, your conclusion takes it full circle, so you need to end it off now. By the way, that also is for your transactionals. Give a moral lesson. You know, I don't know why 18-year-olds very often think they become psychologists. So we would end off our essay with, so if you do not want to get caught in a storm, you have to do this and this and this. And very often it's really a moral lesson that you have to have. No. Rather leave it in hanging in the air for a bit, create a little expectation for the reader to fill up on their own. But this moral lesson, and especially followed by so, God, oh my word, look at your own essay previously and see how many of you have actually used that strategy. It's not working. Then to force an end. And I think this is the bane of a teacher's existence. Then I woke up. It was all a dream. You write this brilliant essay where you are creative and you create expectation, and the reader is transported into a totally different world. And then you get to the end and it falls flat. And then I woke up. Please don't do that. Find an interesting way of ending your essay. When you're done, you have to revise, edit, and proofread. Now, there are quite a number of checklists going around, so I want you to use those. And if you don't have them, ask your teacher. Check your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. I also think it's very often a good thing before you have to hand in a final task. Ask a friend of yours to quickly read through it and just check. He doesn't have to be the cleverest, best writer in the classroom. Anybody. Because someone else might see an error that you miss. I know, children, my children are the best in the world and they're perfect. They're not, but they're my children. I don't see their mistakes, or I choose not to see that. But someone else will objectively look at it and identify a challenge, and that is what you need. Does every paragraph contain one main idea? Now, that is the rule of thumb. Is the format correct? Have you written in paragraphs? And with paragraphs, we mean you leave a line open between the second and the third and the first and the second paragraph. Not start on a new line. You have to leave open a line to indicate that that's a new paragraph. Check whether it's the correct length. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't count the words in an essay, but I have a good idea of how long an essay should kind of be. So please don't turn into mathematicians and add up all the words in every line and then get a total, and then you've wasted all your time counting words and not developing ideas. That's not what we want. But try to keep within the number of words. that you are allowed to write. Remember, the more you write, the more mistakes you make. Check if there is a good introduction, and then check if there is a good conclusion, and check that you have expanded all the ideas in the body. Very, very important. That's your basic checklist. And most importantly, when you read your essay, does it actually make sense? Because very often we read essays that doesn't make sense whatsoever. We don't know where the thoughts are coming. So think objectively. So common mistakes and how to fix them. I've taken the liberty of writing or typing out an essay from many, many years ago. So let's read through that. And I want you to be editors now. Life always comes with a lot of influence from a lot of people. A lot of. The rule actually says something different. But let's carry on. All of these sometimes restrict us from doing what is right. We often go with influence brought by our peers, loved ones, and also those popular people out there. An advice to those that are easily influenced is that they should try by all means to do what is right and not what the other people think is right. We often punish ourselves, our happiness, because we are more focused on what other people do. We should not do things to impress others. Right, so now I've used a couple of these. First of all, synonyms. We don't actually talk about a lot of people. We would rather refer to many, many people. And remember the much and many, the countable, uncountable. Remember to keep that in mind as well. And then very often the wrong spelling, and that's the word advice and advise. I see my editing skills has gone a little astray here, so forgive these arrows in the middle of nowhere. Hopefully you will understand what I'm trying to say. No, wrong parts of speech. So when we look at the first one, advise, and this is a trick. When you look at the word advise, listen to how I pronounce it. The S is voiced. Advise. Right side should actually be Z. Sorry, but it's not. Okay, and that is the verb form. And the C, that's just the C, is advice. Voiceless. It doesn't have a sound. It's just the S sound. All right? And that refers to the noun. So I will advise you to take my advice. It's the same as practice. Now, you can't say I went to the soccer practice. I practiced. Sorry, this is a little different, but the S refers to the action. So that's the verb. And I am attending the rugby practice with a C, that is the noun form. So if you forget everything else that you've listened to today, that is the one thing that you might want to remember. So advise is a verb. Snake, movement, that is a verb. And the C, it's very short. And inactive, that is the noun. The use of the apostrophe. Now, if we went back to the passage, you would know the writer here used the word loved ones. Loved one apostrophe S. What does the apostrophe do? The apostrophe is actually there to indicate possession, contraction, or omission. In this case, it makes a plural. You never make a plural using an apostrophe. There's your example, loved ones. Never, ever, 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 ever. So photos is Photos, not Photo apostrophe S. That is one rule that you should remember for the rest of this year, for the rest of your life. And then a and an article. Remember, a is used for a single noun with a consonant sound. A class, a flutilla, a chair, one. Okay? And it has a consonant sound. Remember, in this case, it has everything to do with sound and not necessarily how it's spelled. Because an is used for a single noun with a vowel sound. An egg. All right? Yes, it is also spelled with a vowel sound. But when the consonant is silent, then you also use an hour, an honest man. Those are all silent sounds. And even though it's spelt with a consonant, the sound that you hear is a vowel sound. Right, so I'm going to ask you to do this one. Doing the right things will always bring happiness to your life. As an individual, do you know why? Because you did what your heart felt was best to do and not what people did or thought was best. For example, you can't be involved in corruption, meanwhile, you know it's wrong, and also because your colleagues is corrupt. You, as an individual, has to know what is best for you. If you really know what is best for you, obviously, you will definitely do the right thing, which is to report corruption and not be involved in it. There are some examples of mixed tenses here. I want you to quickly look at that. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to quickly just look at that and then we'll refer back to it. The second one, contractions. Remember, your teachers told you very loudly that you're not allowed to use contractions in creative writing. And then concord, that is when the verb and the object or the subject don't relate. Spelling errors, you need to look at that. There are basic rules and it's actually quite glaring. And then finally, punctuation. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to quickly look at that. Starting now.
One.
Right, let's get back to it. Now let's take a look at the mixed tenses. In the first sentence, you will see right things will always bring happiness to your life as an individual. So that's something future wise. Do you know why? Because you did what your heart felt was best. So there's a movement into the past tense that I don't understand. because the next sentence go over into present future tense. So present and future tenses again. So because you do what your heart feels is best to do and not what people do or think is best. For example, and there's your contraction. Number one, there is no apostrophe, which is error number one, but you're not allowed to use that. So can't will be cannot. Be involved in corruption. Meanwhile, actually, you don't have to say meanwhile. Meanwhile means meanwhile back at the ranch. You would rather use the word why. Why put the mean to it? Be involved in corruption while you know, and there's another contraction, it is wrong, and also because your colleagues, how many colleagues do you have? Plural are. There's your concord error. You as an individual have to know what is best for you. You as an individual, is extra information, have to know what is best for you. If you really, double L, know what is best for you, full stop, capital letter, obviously, you will definitely do the right thing, which is to report corruption, and so on and so forth. Okay, now a quick challenge. It is also very important to follow your heart because that's where your happiness lies as an individual. Remember, you need to follow your heart in doing the right things always. Not everyone really loves you, so many people might try to push or lead you towards the wrong path. So we need to be very careful and do the right things always. If you think about this, right things is always hard to do, but will benefit you for the rest of your life. So let's take a look. There are three words that sound the same, but they're spelled differently, and they have different meanings. So let's quickly see. It's very important to follow your heart. That one is correct. Remember, you need to. To means too much. Okay, that one is wrong. And then right at the end somewhere, there's another one. Oh, it was self-corrected. Hard to find. TWO. Number. Then let's take a look. Where your happiness, that's okay, contraction. That is lies as an individual. It's where your happiness lies. Why add as an individual? It's like saying, in my own personal opinion. What is a personal opinion? It is yours. So you can't say, in my own personal opinion. That's like redundancy. You're saying the same things over and over and over again. Keep it simple. Remember, you need to follow your heart and do the right things always. Remember, that word always needs to be in the right position. And then the next word, towards. Are they leading you towards the wrong path, or are they leading you down the wrong path? Just asking. Make sure that your preposition is correct. So we need to be very careful and do the right things always. That is a repetition of a previous sentence. We don't need that. It takes up too many words that we could have used in a more positive way. Right things is always, that's concord. In other words, agreement between subject and verb. Right things, plural, is always hard to do, but will benefit you for the rest of your life. So there's an example of repetition. We can also talk about redundancy. Words often confuse to and to, where, whether and whether. Spelling again. Homonyms, homophones. Remember them. Synonyms, antonyms. Very important. Make sure that you have a good idea of what they are, because you are also going to see this in paper 1 in question 5. Then concord, agreement between subject and verb. I'm not going to give you 3 minutes because we are almost done. I think we can quickly look at a couple of top tips. Write as though you have something to say, not only for marks. I've established that. Use your imagination, you might just surprise yourself. Teachers and markers also read books and we watch movies. Yes, we do have Netflix, not DSTV as much, but we still have Netflix. Be original, can't see. As element of surprise goes a long way. Keep an open mind. Keep it simple. Do not use vocabulary that seem impressive, but if you can't use it properly, ask your teacher to help you. They are more than willing to. Write neatly and clearly. Thank you for attending this lesson. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. Please remember to keep safe. See you next time. Goodbye.